In the Cherry Creek North District, a suburb of Denver, Colorado, the Wilson family's white mansion still stands majestically today in this quiet, upscale residential area. The spacious lawn features meticulously maintained flower beds blooming with colorful blossoms and neatly arranged shrubs along the path to the entrance, gracefully welcoming visitors. At the top of the marble steps, the solid wooden door remains vivid in my memory. I, Rachel Wilson, spent 17 years in this house. I did my homework in front of the living room fireplace, shared meals with my family in the dining room, and dreamed dreams in my second-floor bedroom, until that rainy night when I left home with just a small backpack. 16 years have passed. Today, I've established myself in Denver's real estate industry. I live with my son, Matthew, on the top floor of a high-rise apartment near Cherry Creek Shopping Center, with a view of the majestic Rocky Mountains. Like my mother at the same age, I became a mother, and now I face my 16-year-old son after being driven from my home. Perhaps it's life's irony. My father, Michael, graduated from the University of Denver and became a successful certified public accountant. The image of him walking with a straight back in his Brooks Brothers suit is still etched in my mind. Even in retirement, his stubborn and conservative nature hasn't changed a bit. He values appearances above all else and deeply trusts and respects his brother, Stephen. My mother, Linda, devoted her life to church activities as a typical housewife, dressed in elegant Talbot's clothing. She was a central figure in the Women's Association at First Presbyterian Church, always throwing herself into volunteer work after Sunday Mass. She was absolutely obedient to her husband and never defied him. My mother, who used the Bible's teachings as a shield, continued to turn a blind eye to reality. Sometimes, I catch glimpses of regret for not being able to protect me, still lurking in the depths of her eyes. My uncle Stephen, my father's brother, earned respect in the community as the president of a local construction company and through his dedication to charitable activities. Unmarried, he lived next door to us and made it his daily routine to dine with our family at Sunday roasts. He always sat across from me, greeting me with a gentle smile, until I was banished. The Wilson family was known as a prominent local family. We hosted neighborhood parties for Thanksgiving and decorated the street with luxurious Christmas illuminations. My father and uncle were bound by strong trust, and my mother followed their lead. They say my photograph is still the only one missing from the living room walls lined with old furniture. The high school graduation photo that once hung there was removed by someone's hand on that night 16 years ago. On the surface, we were the perfect family. We were always praised as exemplary at PTA meetings and church events. However, the reality held secrets that couldn't be told to anyone, until that day when I, at 17, revealed the truth. No one had noticed, or perhaps chosen not to notice, the distortion in this family. In 2008, we were spending our usual after-dinner time together as a family. While the aroma of pot roast and apple pie still lingered, my father, deeply settled in an expensive sofa, was eagerly discussing the future of the construction industry with my uncle. My mother returned from the kitchen with the scent of coffee. The fragrant coffee poured into the Wedgwood tea set was served to the family like a nightly ritual. I clasped my trembling hands on my lap, averting my eyes from the college brochure on the table before me, the University of Denver, my father's alma mater. He naturally assumed I would attend there. I was an excellent student, active in the church's Sunday school, a model student with a promising future ahead. However, I knew that tonight, that would become an eternally unattainable dream. Fighting severe morning sickness since morning, I had been mentally preparing for this moment. Still, when I actually tried to put it into words, my throat was painfully dry. The fireplace flames flickered, casting large shadows of my family on the wall. "Dad, Mom," my voice echoed softly, almost hoarse. The room's conversation naturally trailed off, and my family's eyes turned to me. My uncle picked up his coffee cup, wearing his usual gentle smile. That expression momentarily made me feel nauseous. "I'm pregnant." A silence, as if time had stopped. The coffee cup fell from my mother's hand, creating a dark stain on the carpet. Wedgwood fragments scattered, tearing through the silence. My father's expression froze, and my uncle's smile vanished in an instant. In front of the wall adorned with Mother Mary's painting, our family's time was forever distorting. "Who is it?" My father's voice resonated like a low growl. I shuddered at his expression, one I had never seen before from my usually calm and composed father. "Who's responsible? Tell me." I couldn't answer. I mustn't answer. I lowered my gaze while desperately trying to control my trembling hands. "I'll make him take responsibility. We'll arrange the marriage immediately." My father's shout thundered throughout the room. The family photo on the desk trembled slightly from the vibration. "I will not allow anything that brings shame to this house. Think about our standing at First Presbyterian Church." My mother placed her hand on my shoulder while crying. "You're only 17, her voice was shaking. "Let's do what your father says. Trust us." Her hands were trembling, those arms that usually held me tightly were now just resting weakly on my shoulder. My uncle faced my father with an unnaturally calm demeanor. "Michael, calm down. Let's think about this rationally. It could become neighborhood gossip." But my father's anger wouldn't subside. "We're going to the hospital tomorrow. There's no need to tell anyone about this." His stern gaze pierced me. At those words, my spine froze, like something had burst inside me. Words began to overflow, emotions I had suppressed for years were suddenly released. "I'm keeping this baby." Silence spread through the living room again. Only the fireplace flames crackled in that stillness. "I won't have an abortion. That's my decision," I stated firmly, looking straight at my father. "Then get out." My father stood up and looked down at me. The fireplace flames flickered largely behind him. "A shameless daughter has no right to stay in this house. Won't tell us who the father is, refuses abortion. We don't need such a daughter. We can't show our faces at church." "Michael, please." Despite my mother's plea, my father's expression remained frozen in hardness, his figure trembling with anger. He had completely lost any trace of the person I once respected. "Rachel, listen to your father, please. For your future." My mother's plea sounded hollow, as if she were trying to convince herself. I slowly stood up. I went to my room upstairs and picked up the small backpack I had prepared in advance. I had packed only the bare minimum of clothes and a small amount of savings, a diary, and a few favorite photographs. My decision was already made. Staying in this house would mean the death of my soul. For the sake of the life to be born, I had to escape. The sound of my footsteps descending the stairs echoed heavily in the living room. My father was trembling with anger, and my mother had collapsed on the floor crying. "Goodbye," I said with just that word, and opened the front door. The cold spring rain wet my face, without even the luxury of an umbrella. I just walked straight ahead. Behind me, I could hear my mother's crying and my father's angry shouts. My father's final words, "Don't ever come back," faded away in the sound of rain. But my tears had already dissolved into the rain as I walked through it. I had a certain premonition that someday, surely, the day would come when all the truth would be revealed. This was the night that changed my life. For 2 weeks after that, I temporarily took refuge at my best friend Sarah's house. The battle with morning sickness continued. Sarah's mother would gently rub my back as I rushed to the bathroom. "It's okay, Rachel, you're not alone," she'd say. When Sarah's parents heard my situation, they accepted me without hesitation. They offered to let me stay until high school graduation. "Regardless of what your parents think, we can't let a pregnant minor be left on the streets," Sarah's father's words made me bow my head repeatedly, choking back tears. At church, there were concerns about my disappearance. However, my father lied that I had gone to study abroad, and my mother silently supported this story. My uncle continued to busy himself with charitable activities. At the high school graduation ceremony, I managed to graduate as valedictorian, receiving my diploma on stage while hiding my swelling belly under my uniform. The Wilson family wasn't present in the auditorium filled with parents, but Sarah's family cheered for me as if I were their own child. I gave up on college and instead started working part-time as a cashier at a local supermarket. When I told the manager I was pregnant, he showed a momentary look of surprise but said, "Your circumstances don't matter. Just do your job well. That's all I care about." I participated in a teen pregnancy support program, desperately absorbing knowledge about childbirth and childhood care. I met others in similar situations, and we shared our anxieties. "The baby will be our motto," we said. I gradually collected second-hand baby beds and clothes, saving coins in an old piggy bank. On weekends, Sarah would go with me to second-hand shops. "Don't you think this romper is cute? This blanket feels nice," she would say. Such trivial conversations healed my anxious heart. I found a small apartment in the Denver suburbs. The rent was cheap, the facilities minimal, but morning sunlight streamed through the windows, and there was a park nearby. "Here, I can live with my baby," I felt a certain confidence. I did have lingering attachments to my family home. There were nights when I missed my mother's gentle voice, but my determination to protect the life growing inside me overcame that attachment. As the peak of summer heat passed, my labor began. "I'm calling an ambulance." Sarah's voice echoed distantly. "Rachel, hang in there. I'll stay with you." After 36 hours of painful labor, a boy was born. I named him Matthew, hoping he would have the strength to face the truth. His tiny clenched hand, his soft breathing, his existence gave me the courage to live. The battle with extreme poverty began. I started working night shifts at the supermarket to afford milk. The elderly couple who managed the apartment looked after Matthew. "Just seeing such a cute baby makes us happy," they would say, sometimes even sharing their dinner with us. The prejudice from others was relentless. "Such a young girl raising a child alone. What about the father? Where are her parents?" The whispers grew louder day by day. But every time I saw Matthew smile, I renewed my determination. "I won't let anyone hurt this child." The turning point came during a conversation with a real estate agent while looking for my own apartment. "This room is a very good property. The sunlight is good, and for a small child," I was strongly drawn to that woman's kind gaze and professional explanation. "I wonder if it's worth getting a real estate license," I thought. I began studying after Matthew went to sleep at night: real estate law, economics, architecture knowledge. Everything was fresh and interesting. 3-year-old Matthew would peek curiously. "Mom, you will definitely succeed, okay?" The day I passed the license exam, Matthew showed me a picture he drew at daycare, Mommy and me. It showed the two of us standing, smiling in front of a big house. "Mommy, you're amazing," he said with his innocent smile. I couldn't stop my tears. My first deal was a small property, but the commission was more than double my previous income. Gradually, my circle of clients expanded, and my reputation grew: knowledgeable despite being young, careful attention to detail, trustworthy. I steadily built up my track record. I even received scout offers from major real estate companies. However, I chose the path of independence. I want to forge my own path with my own strength. That determination was as strong as it was 16 years ago. Now, my real estate office is steadily growing, with a top-floor office in a high-rise with a good view. "Mommy, we can see all of Denver from here," Matthew's excited voice warmly filled my heart. After 16 years, Matthew has reached the same age I was when I was driven from home. The sense of justice, kindness, and strength dwelling in his eyes, he's my pride. And at the same time, it prompted another decision. The time had finally come to reveal the truth. It was the week after Matthew's 16th birthday. My car slowly entered the upscale residential area of Cherry Creek North. In the passenger seat, the prepared documents carried weight in my bag. Multiple meetings with lawyers, prior consultation with the police, feelings organized through counseling, all preparations were complete. Now, I was standing in front of my family home for the first time in 16 years. I took a deep breath before reaching for the doorbell. Matthew had gone out with friends. "Take care, Mom," my now tall son had looked at me worriedly. I hadn't told him the purpose of today. I only said I was going to meet an old acquaintance. The chime rang, and after a while, the door opened. "Oh, my Rachel," my mother's voice was trembling. I hesitated for a moment at the sight of her aged appearance. Though her elegance remained, her hair had grown noticeably white, and her back was slightly hunched. "Mom, it's been a while." Fighting back tears, I spoke quietly. After a moment of confusion, my mother embraced me in her arms. 16 years' worth of emotions welled up. "Michael." At mother's cry, father appeared. Though no longer wearing his Brooks Brothers suit, his back was still straight as ever. However, his hair had turned white, and deep wrinkles were carved into his face. Father stood speechless at the sight of me, and behind him was Uncle's figure. "Hello, Rachel," he greeted, his same gentle smile as always, but his eyes shone coldly. I was shown into the living room. The same furnishings from 16 years ago, the fireplace, the wall lined with family photos. Only my photo remained missing. Tension filled the room. Father sat restlessly in his chair while Mother clutched her handkerchief beside me. Uncle stood by the fireplace, sipping coffee. "Rachel, why now?" Father's voice trailed off. I took the documents from my bag. My hands were trembling slightly, but there was no turning back now, for Matthew's sake and for my own. Dad, Mom, and Uncle, all three pairs of eyes, turned to me at once. "Let me tell you why I made that choice 16 years ago." Uncle's coffee cup tilted slightly. "When I was 16. Words caught in my throat. But just as I had practiced in counseling, I carefully formed each word. "I was sexually abused by Uncle." Only the ticking of the clock echoed in the silence. "Matthew's father is Uncle." Mother screamed and collapsed to the floor. The blood drained from Father's face. Uncle's expression transformed. His gentle smile vanished, replaced by an animal-like countenance. "What are you saying, Rachel?" Uncle raised his voice. "Without any evidence." "I have evidence." I spread out the documents with trembling hands. "Everything is recorded. Dates, places, circumstances." "Shut up." Uncle advanced toward me, his hand raised. At that moment, Mother stood up with her phone and shouted, "The police have already been notified." Father stood frozen in shock. Uncle's expression hardened. "Linda, you can't." I knew. Mother's voice was shaking. But I was scared. I couldn't protect Rachel. Police sirens approached. Uncle started running toward the exit, but officers were already waiting at the entrance. Father suddenly stood up and rushed toward Uncle. "Brother, why?" His voice was an anguished cry. Father's fist caught Uncle's face. The police officers separated them. Mother rushed to me and clung to me. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Her sobs echoed throughout the room. While embracing Mother, I gazed out the window. Unlike that rainy night 16 years ago, today was clear, as if the long darkness had finally lifted. The trial. The police questioning began. Father collapsed in his chair, sobbing. Mother held my hand tightly, still trembling. I began opening the doors of memory I had sealed away for 16 years, one by one. It was painful, but as I spoke the truth, I felt the burden on my heart gradually lighten. That evening, I called Matthew. "Mom, are you okay?" At my son's gentle voice, tears welled up. "Yes, I'm fine. Finally, everything is over." After a long silence, Matthew said in a small voice, "Mom, you were strong." At those words, 16 years of emotions welled up. Speaking the truth might create new wounds, but at the same time, it was the first step toward healing old ones. Looking up at the sky as the sun began to set, I was certain this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. The real healing for our family would start from here. 6 months later, in the Denver District Court, the verdict came down. Stephen Wilson was sentenced to 15 years in prison. I witnessed that moment from the front row, together with my parents. When I spoke as a victim, my voice trembled. I told the court about my banishment 16 years ago, my lonely years raising a child, and above all, the days when he stole my dignity as a young girl. Our eyes met for the first time in years. The cold light was gone from his eyes, leaving only those of an old man. The settlement payment. The company dissolution. Local media reported on the Wilson construction sign being taken down. The community was shocked when the true nature of my uncle, who had posed as a philanthropist, was revealed. A family rebuilding. Father was tormented by deep regret and temporarily lost himself in alcohol. I trusted my brother too much. I couldn't protect my daughter, he muttered almost every night. Mother desperately supported him. Through counseling and addiction rehabilitation, he gradually began to recover. One day, Father came to watch Matthew's baseball game. He silently shed tears while watching his grandson play. After the game, he awkwardly called out, "That was good playing." Matthew smiled shyly at those words. Mother actively tried to rebuild her relationship with us. On weekends, she would visit our apartment with homemade food and eagerly listen to Matthew's stories. "I should have been stronger and stood by your side then," she confessed during family counseling. At her words, emotions I had harbored for so long overflowed. I established a support organization for sexual abuse victims. I wanted to bring hope to others suffering in similar situations. With the motto "Silence only protects the perpetrator," I began giving lectures. My book, Silent Voice, received widespread response. Matthew gradually built his relationship with his grandparents. Though initially cautious, he began to open his heart. Grandpa's coaching me in baseball. Seeing my son's happy smile as he shared this brought me healing. Matthew aspired to attend the University of Denver, pursuing the dream I had to give up. Father offered to fund his education. "At least let me do this much." After a long silence, I nodded. We began holding monthly family meetings. At first, the atmosphere was awkward, but gradually, we learned to speak honestly with each other. We started spending Thanksgiving and Christmas together again. The aroma of Mother's homemade apple pie once more became part of my memories. Moving forward. They say Uncle refuses all visitors in prison. There are no signs of repentance, not a single word of apology. But that no longer governs our lives. One day, we held a barbecue party in the garden of our newly purchased house. Father manned the grill. Mother made salad. Matthew chatted cheerfully with his friends. Looking at the scene, I let out a deep sigh. "Mom, what's wrong?" Matthew looked at me curiously. "Nothing, just." I looked up at the sky. "It feels like we've finally become a real family." Over the long years, we built a new form of family. It might not be perfect, but it's a relationship where we can face the truth, understand each other, and respect one another. That 17-year-old girl who left home in the cold rain with a small backpack had surely grown into an adult with real strength. And now, with my son and parents, I'm beginning to walk into a new season. Outside the window, the gentle spring sunlight warmly illuminated our future.